Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for attending this virtual hybrid meeting of the Planning Committee on Thursday, the 12th of November 2020. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Councillor Caleb Tomlinson. I'm the Chair of the Committee, and Councillor Mel Donoghue is the Vice Chair. Also present with me are our officers and some members of the committee in a socially distant and COVID-secure setting. This is an audio and video meeting. It is being recorded and the stream will also be live on YouTube. The web address for this is displayed on the agenda for the meeting and can be found on the Council's website. If you've joined the meeting because you're a member of the public who has registered to speak, please note you have a time limit of up to 4 minutes. Please unmute your microphone when I invite you to speak. The Deputy Monitoring Officer will operate a stopwatch and will confirm when your time runs out. You should then finish or in the middle of making a point, wind up within a few seconds and finish speaking. After each report has been presented and any speakers have made their representations, I will bring the application into committee. If any committee members wish to speak on an application, you should unmute your microphone or use the chat function in the top right-hand corner to notify our moderator that you wish to speak. I will then invite you in order. Our Deputy Monitoring Officer, Dave, will repeat the motion before the vote is taken to ensure everyone is aware of what is being voted on. I will call each member alphabetically to vote and Dave will confirm the outcome of the decision. If the technology fails, then I will adjourn the meeting for several minutes to try and resolve the issue, or if this is not possible, a new date and time will be organised. Please can I ask all members to confirm they can see, hear and speak before the meeting begins. I will call your names alphabetically. So Councillor Will Adams.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Mal Donoghue.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor James Flannery.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Mary Green.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Harry Hancock.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor John Hesketh.
Present, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Mick Higgins. Councillor Christine Melia.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Caroline Moon.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Phil Smith.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Gareth Watson.
Yes, Chair.
And Councillor Barry Yates.
Yes, Chair.
And our officers, Jonathan Nord.
Yes, Chair.
Stephen Brown.
Yes, Chair.
Dave Whelan.
Yes, Chair.
Jess Joyman. Catherine Lewis.
Yes, Chair.
Debbie Roberts.
Yes, Chair.
And Charlotte Lynch.
Yes, Chair.
Okay, we'll open the meeting. Do we have apologies for absence?
No, Chair, we've not received any.
Thanks for that. All right. Item 3, declarations of interest. Councillor Higgins.
Could I declare interest? Sorry. Number 6, please. I know the gentleman that's willing, if present.
Okay, so is that prejudicial?
Yeah.
Okay, so you'll leave the meeting for that item, okay?
Yes, okay.
All right, does...
Holdings Lane, item number 8 for me, Chair. That's in my ward, so it's not a pecuniary interest.
Yeah, it's not an interest really, but thanks for that, Councillor. Okay, have we all read the minutes of the last meeting?
Hello, Chair.
I'll move them, Chair, if I can.
Oh, Councillor Mary Green.
Hello, Chair. Sorry about that. I put my hand up. You've not seen it. Just for clarity, I'm not declaring an interest as such, but just for clarity on item 6, as you probably know, I've had contact with a member of the public that I used to work with, be it that the last time I worked with us was 47 years ago, so I've not seen her for 47 years, but I did contact her as requested, but I did declare to her that I wasn't able to comment or show any preference one way or another, and she was quite understanding of that. But it's just for clarity, I thought I'd better just tell you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Green, thank you. Okay, have we all read the minutes of the last meeting?
I'll move them, Chair.
Okay, second.
Seconded, Chair.
Okay, I'll sign those minutes now. We now need to take a vote on the minutes. Councillor Will Adams,
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Mel Donoghue,
Yes, Chair.
Councillor James Flannery,
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Mary Green,
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Harry Hancock, Councillor John Hesketh,
Present, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Mick Higgins,
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Christine Melia,
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Caroline Moon,
Can I abstain, Chair?
of course you can, you weren't present. Councillor Phil Smith,
Yes, Chair, agreed.
Councillor Gareth Watson,
Yes, Chair.
and Councillor Barry Yates.
Yes, Chair.
Okay, thank you all for that. Do we have any appeal decisions?
None to report, Chair.
Okay, moving on to item 6, 175 to 177 Station Road, Bamber Bridge. And Stephen is going to present the item.
We're just waiting to get it up on screen. Right, here we go. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so the application site is the former Royal Bank of Scotland building, which is now vacant. It's set within the Bamber Bridge district centre, within a stretch of commercial premises on the eastern side of Station Road, just to the north of Morrison's. Next slide, please. And the next one.
We've got a real delay.
So if you look to the top of the screen, you can see the building itself marked there where Debbie's indicating now. And to the rear, you've got a combined service yard, which services the other buildings in that block and Morrison's. And to the right of the screen, you can see the large car park. And then to the north of the building, there's the pedestrian access that runs down and feeds through onto Station Road. Next one, please. So the proposal is for a change of use to an A4 drinking establishment / American diner restaurant. The proposal includes some external alterations consisting of the addition of illuminated signage to the frontage, which will be subject to a separate application, and minor alterations to the rear elevation within the enclosed yard we've just looked at. And you can see it on the screen now. These elevations are the formation of a new door and glazing to an existing door. Just looking at the bottom of the screen is the front elevation. The proposal has been designed to encompass all the existing windows and door openings on the frontage. These will be replaced with aluminium frames. Internally, the existing large open plan area will be retained for a restaurant in one half and drinking area in the other, with a central bar. Could you just go on to the next? It's not coming up clearly, but basically the bottom 2/3 are the open area, and then to the rear is a kitchen, a store, office, and a new disabled WC, as there's already existing toilets in the premises. This is all within the existing building envelope, and a stainless steel extraction stack is shown to the rear of the building. Next one, please. Yeah, so that's the premises now currently boarded up, and the new windows will essentially be under those boarded areas with the entrance doors in the front. Next, please. And that's just a view looking from the north down Station Road, so the premises of the second one on the left. As you can see, it's a mixed-use area commercial premises and some residential on the opposite side of Station Road. So in terms of the material issues, this is a vacant unit in the district centre, and it is considered it will add viability and vitality to the centre in the sense that the premises are currently empty. There's no highway objection. It's adjacent to the large car park to the rear that we indicated earlier. There's a 3-hour restriction on that car park. It's on a bus route and it's accessible to the railway station. Environmental Health have raised no objections subject to the conditions outlined in the report, and on this basis it's recommended for approval. Before the discussion, could I just draw your attention to suggested condition number 5. Reading that again today, I think where it talks about Friday to Saturday 9 a.m. to 1 a.m. brackets Sunday, that could be misread as mean it can be open from Friday morning through till Sunday morning. So we would propose to reword that to split it into saying Friday 9 till 1 a.m. Saturday and Saturday 9 a.m. till 1 a.m. on Sunday, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Stephen. Well, we don't have any registered speakers on these. We don't have any members not on committee wishing to speak on this, and we don't have the applicant or the agent. So I will bring the application straight into committee. Councillor Mary Green.
Yes, Chair. Just one point really that of concern. The signage and lighting that appears to be proposed in the application, with there being houses on the opposite side of the road, I'm just a little bit concerned with it being an American diner, that there aren't sort of garish, bright coloured, massive lights going up there in tune with the American diner, but obviously it's going to shine opposite the houses, opposite with the bedrooms, and with it being open till 1 a.m, obviously it might just impact on the residential amenity of those houses. So whether something could be put on to reduce the amount of garish light or colouring in those lights, if that could be looked at, please.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Green. I'll just, because it's not actually in my ward, it's opposite my ward, and I used to live on Station Road, and GT's has a massive illuminated signage outside it, and so, but I can bring Stephen in to see if he could put some conditions on it regarding the timing.
Yeah, just to clarify, the illuminated signage isn't part of this application because it's under a separate legislation, the advertisement regulation. So that would be a separate, discrete application, and on the back of that, we could regulate that accordingly. Thanks.
Okay, are you all right with that, Councillor Green?
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Councillor Will Adams.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is fairly straightforward. It seems to be compliant. It's bringing a disused building back into use, and I think it will be good for the local area for that building to be brought back into use. So on those grounds, and obviously looking at the future application regarding the lighting, I'm quite happy to propose approval for this. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Adams. Councillor Hesketh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As far as I'm concerned, Mr. Chairman, it's very much like the other units along the same side of the road. It does come under policy E4, and it accords with our local plan, Mr. Chairman, and it's better used than not, and I will go along with approval. Thank you.
Okay, so thanks for that, Councillor Hesketh. Councillor Christine Melia.
Hello, I haven't actually put my hand up, but I can say something. It is next to a funeral parlour, so I think we need to be mindful that it's not too noisy, you know, if relatives are visiting loved ones and that. But other than that, yeah, I approve it.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Amelia. Right, so I've had a proposer and a seconder, Councillor Phil Smith.
Yes, only briefly, Chair. I would be supporting it, and it's nice to see somebody wanting to invest in these difficult times, to be quite honest, and you probably deserve all the support they can get. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. I just hope they don't raise the dead. Okay, if we've no more proposals, can we go to Councillor Barry Yates?
You can, Chair, but I've took my hand down because when the Banbury Bridge councillor spoke, I thought, well, that she's a councillor for the area and I've no more to add.
Okay, thanks for that. Okay, no more proposals. Okay, let's go to the vote then. Councillor Adams?
Yes, Chair.
Yes, what?
Approve, sorry.
Thanks, Councillor Adams. Councillor Donoghue?
For, Chair.
Councillor Flannery?
Approval, Chair.
Councillor Mary Green?
For, Chair.
Councillor Harry Hancock? Councillor Hancock, you're on mute.
Approve with conditions, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Hesketh?
Approval, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Mick Higgin? Oh, no, sorry about that. Councillor Christine Melia?
Approved, Chair.
Councillor Caroline Moon?
For.
Councillor Phil Smith?
Approval, Chair.
Councillor Gareth Watson? Councillor Watson, I think you might be muted.
For approval. Sorry, yeah, I tapped it by mistake.
Okay, thanks for that. Councillor Barry Yates?
Approval, Chair.
And I am also for approval. So, Dave, can you confirm the outcome, please?
Yes, Chair, that was a unanimous vote for the 12 members who voted in favour of the application.
Okay, thanks for that. We'll just invite Councillor Higgins back into the meeting. Okay, item number 7 is land adjacent to the Oaks, Potter Lane, Samlesbury. And Catherine, please could you present the item?
Hi, thank you, Chair. The development is for the erection of a 2-storey plus a basement at basement level for a family eco home, and there is associated landscaping and car parking and a proposed new access. If we could just have the next slide, that would be helpful. Okay, thanks for that. So this is the site. It's located to the east of the borough in Samlesbury, with access from the A59 via Potter Lane. So from the bottom of the screen, you'll be able to see Potter Lane. The A59 is in the green, and the application site is outlined within the red edge. And you've got Brockholes, the nature reserve, which is in the Borough Council of Preston on the other side of the river. Next slide, please. And this is an aerial view. The application site is identified by the red edge and is in the ownership of the owners, Mr. and Mrs. Green, who own the Oaks, which you can just see in the top right-hand corner of the slide. The Oaks has an extensive planning history and was a converted piggery which had a limited curtilage, but does enjoy a large open area due south of the converted property. And this application site is within this open area and is made by the applicant's relative, Mr. and Mrs. Derbyshire, and that's to provide for a large intergenerational family property. And you'll be able to see from the slide, we've got Westray, which forms the southern boundary, and we've also got a track of green space approximately 1 metre between the application site and the dwelling known as Water's Edge on the western boundary, with the River Ribble beyond. And the whole of the site and the area is subject to policy G1 green belt. Next slide, please. This slide provides or demonstrates the oaks, which you can see in the background, and is taken from probably the location of where the new property would be. So you can see that Potter's Lane runs along the boundary there, and between those two trees will be the access point. There's a lot of trees on the application site on most of the boundaries. A tree survey accompanies the application, and the tree officer for the council has considered all the aspects associated with that and doesn't consider that there would be an issue and there are no loss of any of the trees. If you could do the next slide, that would be great. And this slide provides for the dwelling within the context of the site. You can again see the access from Potter Lane, and it would have about 60-metre drive that would lead to the lower level of the site with the underground car parking, and there will be a cinema within that area as well, and also an accessible bedroom. And then on the ground floor you've got the living accommodation, and then at first floor you've got the bedrooms. The vehicle access will go down to a maximum depth of 2.6 metres below the ground level, and there will be a fountain, a walkway, and you can also see across the part of the site in the kind of very pale sand colour, there will be an access way that links. Next slide. Okay, these show the elevations of the property. It's a 5 to 6 bedroom detached 2-storey with the underground level. There are 3 masses as I've described, with the ground floor living spaces and the first floor sleeping, and they will be joined by this centre of the glass link of circulation, which would have like a grass roof made of sedum. The materials include off-white render, larch timber cladding, copper cladding, the sedum green roof, and then some parts of the roof will be aluminium sheeting. Triple glazing is proposed, and there will be a screened balcony, and there's lots of strong architectural details and use of eco-type materials. So the top of the slide will be the front elevation, and that faces to the road on Potter's Lane, 60 metres away. And then we've got the side elevation that you can see demonstrates that underground element for the garage level entry and additional car parking. And then the 2 elevations at the bottom, one of them shows the other side that faces west, and then the one at the back that faces north. Next slide, please. Okay, this is an artist's impression which shows what the proposed entrance will be from Potter's Lane. So you can see how the driveway dips down to that kind of subterranean kind of underground level, and then you've got that kind of area sand coloured where you've got that pedestrian walkway that will be at the existing ground level. So in terms of impact on any of the residential properties, the height from ground level will be about 7.5 metres to the roof, which will be of a similar height to the other existing properties that we've seen on the other slides. The design and access statement does describe the property as a grand property. Yes, it has a grand design, but it has been very carefully designed so that you only have the ground floor and the first floor that would be visible in terms of impact on that surrounding area. Next slide, please. Okay, and this is a proposed view from the northeast. So this is kind of taken like from the side garden, showing the side elevation with the white render and the aluminium roof, the large glazing, which will be triple glazing, and also the infinity pool that will be there. So you'd have an external area for the swimming pool and also an internal area. And you can also see then that impact of the access arrangements with the gabion retaining wall in the foreground, and then the other part where the fountain would be, just kind of like to the left of the screen. Next slide, please. And this demonstrates the two residential properties. We've got Westray on the southern boundary and Water's Edge, Westray, let me just get this right for you. There's Westray and Water's Edge. Water's Edge would be on the western boundary with the River Ribble beyond, and Westray will be on the southern boundary at the bottom of the site. The residential properties, there's been concern, a number of objections to the scheme, some on design, some on in terms of impact on the spatial distances, but the scheme is all policy compliant from those aspects, so there wouldn't be an undue impact on any of the residential amenities. The Environment Agency have been consulted, although it's not in a flood risk zone and wouldn't necessarily require them to be consulted because of the concerns raised by the residents due to the close proximity of the River Ribble and previous flooding in the area. They've advised that they have no concerns to raise about it. The only issue that they would ask for is conditions on the swimming pool and how the drainage of that was dealt with. There are no objections from any of the other statutory consultees either. If we could have the next slide, please. So what we really come down to from an officer's perspective is the principle of the development. As described and said earlier, the site is within the green belt, where there's a fundamental aim to prevent urban sprawl, both at national policy and local policy, and that's by keeping land open. The construction of new buildings is considered as inappropriate, although there are several exceptions to that, and one of them is limited infilling. And on plan form, the proposed development sits and fits within a well-contained unit of the other three properties. You've got Westray, Water's Edge, and then a bungalow that's further on. So when we look at it on plan form, it does appear to be an infill plot. However, there's no definition of limited infilling. We've had previous appeal decisions that's advised that the development that fills a gap in an otherwise developed frontage is one definition, but it's got to be assessed in terms of the context of the site, the location and the form of development. And it's a matter of fact and degree and the nature, size and location of the property. And the key aspect for officers is the access arrangements. The other properties are accessed from a spur of Potter Lane, whereas to enable this dwelling to form part of that cluster with the other three dwellings, there will be a need to construct the elongated driveway across that open aspect of that land, and that would have an impact on the openness of the site. So on that basis, our officers consider that this isn't an infill plot. In terms of openness, there would be a reduction, and although it's acknowledged that the height of the dwelling would be similar, there would be clear harm to that openness. In terms of very special circumstances, the applicant has argued that weight should be attached to the design of the eco-development and that the dwelling would provide a home and workplace for 4 generations of the same family. However, officers consider limited weight is attached to this aspect, as there are policies within the local plan that provide for annexes to the main residence where they're appropriate to facilitate such request. The parish council have raised a concern and an objection, and although they wanted to speak tonight, I think the chair of the parish council is already on another Zoom meeting for another situation, but I did say I would verbally advise the committee of that. But on balance, it's considered that the proposed development is recommended for refusal for the reasons that are set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, Catherine. Well, we have a registered speaker on this application in support, and that is Louise Green, but it's audio only. Louise Green, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, you have 4 minutes to make your points. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of the application. My name is Louise Green. I reside at the Oaks, Potters Lane, and this application seeks to build on my garden. I therefore speak as a potential neighbour to the proposal and also on behalf of the applicants who are my parents. They have confirmed with the council that I'm authorised to speak on their behalf in an effort to minimise duplication when making our comments. We thank Mrs Lewis for the time and effort she has expended on the application. We are aware that Greenbelt infill applications are rather difficult to assess on their merits, and that at the end of the day the decision always comes down to planning judgment, and that can differ from planning officer to planning officer and planning inspectorate to planning inspectorate. It seems to be the case here that all the neighbour concerns over flooding, road safety and the impact on wildlife have been explored, and that all consultee responses consider the application to be entirely satisfactory insofar as it is in their ambit to comment. With regards to privacy and impact on neighbouring properties, the application satisfies the South Ribble zone policies in terms of distance, and therefore the council is satisfied there's no impact on the neighbours. Therefore, the only two issues that are in dispute are whether this represents an infill plot and whether the proposed development would have a detrimental impact on the Greenbelt. Dealing firstly with the question of infill, there is no definition in the National Planning Policy Framework of limited infill, and therefore this comes down to planning judgment. We know that with regards to this application, the recommendation is for refusal on the basis that the property does not fill a gap within the developed frontage and therefore does not constitute infill. The main issue appears, however, to be the drive. We also note that the last two Greenbelt infill appeal decisions have been lost by South Ribble Borough Council, and these were lost on the basis that the National Planning Policy Framework does not state that there has to be a developed frontage, and that South Ribble have not adopted a policy of their own to define what would be acceptable to them as infill. Therefore, on both those appeals, the council's position on there needing to be a developed frontage was found to be incorrect. You may remember at the last planning committee meeting, the most recent Greenbelt infill decision at Midge Hall Lane was reported, and it was stated that having in mind this was the second appeal to go against the council's position on infill in a short space of time, the infill policy needed to be looked at. With regard to openness and character, we would like to bring the committee's attention to an appeal decision in respect of an infill application for two large detached houses on Barker Lane in Wiltshire, which is approximately 5 miles away from the application we are discussing tonight. Ribble Valley Borough Council refused the application on the grounds of openness and the scale of the two properties, which were very large. The planning inspector's decision on the 5th of May 2017 allowed the appeal for the two houses, and planning permission was granted, for the two houses. When dealing with openness and character, he stated that whilst the two properties would inevitably have some effect on the openness of the Greenbelt, I have concluded that it would represent limited infilling in a village, which is an accepted exception in the framework. Accordingly, the effect on the openness would not be so significant that it would cause any material harm to this part of the Greenbelt. In terms of the effect on the character and appearance of the area, although large, the dwellings would be sympathetic to the surrounding properties, which themselves are diverse in terms of their size and design. Whilst the proposal would have a greater effect on the area in that they would be large and more prominent on the street scene, I am satisfied that their appropriate size and design would not have any significantly harmful effect on the character or appearance of the area. The inspector further went on to say that he acknowledged the council's concerns in that allowing the proposal would set a precedent that they would find difficult to resist other similar development. However, he stated that he had not been presented with any directly similar or comparable sites to which this might apply, and that each application and appeal must be determined on its own merits. A generalised concern of this nature, he concluded, did not justify withholding planning permission.
You need to tie up now, Louise.
We note that these concerns have been raised in relation to the application before you tonight and hope that this assists in easing those concerns. The question of impact on the openness of the Greenbelt was also considered by the Supreme Court on judicial review in 2018. The court dealt with an application where the openness of the Greenbelt infill was concerned and came to the conclusion that it was clear that the openness of the Greenbelt must be considered, not the openness of the proposal site, and that must be the case in respect of infill applications, because any infill would, almost by definition, have an impact on the openness of a site. The court found
Louise, Louise, I really must stop you now. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for your input. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, I will now bring this application into committee. Councillor Flannery.
Thanks, Chair. Catherine, when you presented the this application, if I hadn't read the decision, I would have thought it was going for approval, because there was very many positives about how you presented it, and it appears it's fallen down on this policy G1, openness to the Greenbelt. Now, are we right in saying that it's the path leading from the house to the access point? Is that the problem with the openness to the Greenbelt? Is that all right to ask that question? Yeah.
Hi, thank you. Through the chair, if I could just answer that. It's not just the path, and to just provide a little bit of context, I think in presenting the application, the positives are that it's an attractive, large property. There's no question about that. Okay, people have different views about design, but you know, it is a grand design, and there's a lot of thought that's gone into that. And it was important to explain all of that at the beginning of the presentation before clearly starting about the principle, when from a principle perspective, I didn't want to colour that presentation that it was, well, it's a straight refusal without you understanding or appreciating all the issues that surrounded it in terms of that design and why they came up with that design in that location. But notwithstanding the details, I think for me as an officer, and we have discussed this within the office as well, the actual principle of the development is what's at stake here. And it's in terms of, it's not just the path, that road and the design of the road to reach the property, so that that property then forms part of an infill by very nature of the 60 metres of the road, the access road, to us as officers is stretching whether or not it's an infill plot. So if it shared a similar road with those other 3 properties, and there were properties of a similar size next to it, then that might be considered acceptable. But what seems to have happened here is when you look at on plan form, you see 3 properties and a gap, but that gap isn't a true gap from a frontage. It requires that access point. And to pick up another little bit of Mrs. Green's presentation, is that the decision notice at Ribble Valley related to the demolition and rebuild of dwellings either. So it wasn't just about an infill plot at that stage, as far as I'm aware. So for us, it doesn't feel like, or it isn't considered a true infill plot. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. Thanks, Chair. Just one last point, and then I would like the views of the ward councillor too, because I always put a lot of value on that. So just for one last point of clarification, if the applicant was going for this house plus 2 others, which would create access for 3 houses, would this have passed?
Right. Thank you, Chair. I think that's a difficult question. We don't have a plan in front of us to consider. And if we're talking about providing 3 properties, is that truly an infill plot? And that's when we have to start looking at what other appeal decisions have come through that might support or otherwise that. But without seeing a plan, that will be difficult to provide a more definite answer.
Okay, thanks for that, Catherine. Councillor Barry Yates, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Catherine, for that explanation there. I was just going to come in on the infill part. Is that the infill, if you look in the local plan, it says that infill is between properties where there's a piece of land in between. It doesn't mean in between properties that are like quarter of a mile apart. It really talks about when you've got 7 detached houses going down a street or a highway and you get a gap, and that's what you call infill. The applicant came across very good, but unfortunately we have to take this application on its own merit. We don't look at Ribble Valley or anywhere else. We are South Ribble Borough Planning Committee, and we go by what South Ribble Planning Committee rules say in our local plan. So, Mr. Chairman, I will not take too much of the committee time on this application, but I would like to point out why I agree with the officer's recommendation. Firstly, this application cannot be classed as infill, as the site is contrary to 145 of the framework and policy G1 of the South Ribble local plan. Secondly, new build is regarded as inappropriate development in Greenbelt, as set out in policy G1 in the South Ribble local plan. Thirdly, the application will have an adverse effect on the character and appearance of the area and is contrary to policy G17 of the South Ribble local plan. Mr. Chairman, I could go on and on with reasons for refusal, but I must fully agree with the excellent report from our officer and would like to thank her for a very, very detailed report. Mr. Chairman, I move that the officer's recommendation for refusal. And on doing that, Chair, I just give you a little bit of history for the committee of this area. In the 10th century, there was a fort very close by. That was a community, proper community that people lived in. And it was a gated one, a walled one. It's called Lower Farm, just further down. It used to stop the Scots coming through to invade the premises, invade the land around that area. And indeed, in the 11th century, William Wallace came through, sacked the church at Samlesbury and demolished part of Samlesbury Hall and Lower Hall that was there. And moving on to it's the 17th century, 1645, Cromwell came through there and had a battle in that area. And just across from the river, there's a vast graveyard there of the fallen soldiers of both sides of the Roundheads and the cavalry and the Kingsmen. This area is not just Greenbelt, it's historic area as well. Underneath the ground there that historians are still looking at is parts of the fort that I've explained to you about that needs to be preserved. There is other people that tried to build on this land, and in fact the last one was going for a quarry, but if you look back at David from Leyland in our museum, he turned around and he said, don't do so much around there, there's too much historic land there, and that is really where the hoard was found as well. So that's just a little bit of history, but I'm moving the I do move the officer's recommendation for refusal, Mr. Chairman, on this application. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Yates, thank you very much for the history lesson. And your proposing refusal, thank you. Yeah, I've got Councillor Hesketh, then Councillor Hancock.
Yep.
Thank you, Chair. The Oaks, in actual fact, it does have an appropriate name, doesn't it? Because to me, it's the old proverb, from tiny acorns a mighty oak tree grows. Because I can remember way back when this was a dilapidated old piggery. and there was great confusion at that particular time. And on numerous occasions it came forward and was refused and so forth. But eventually they did get permission for it. And as I say, the site kept growing. But this is a different aspect of that particular site. You know, we've got to accept that it is a grand design. It does look nice and so forth. But we have to take guidelines from South Ribble guidelines. And it's an inappropriate development in Greenbelt, and it's contrary to G1 of our local plan and framework, Mr. Chairman. And I recommend that we refuse the application with the reasons at the end of the report. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hancock. Councillor Hesketh. Fluffed my lines there. Thanks, Councillor Hesketh. So you're seconding Councillor Yates's proposal. Councillor Hancock.
Thank you, Chair. It's surprising what you can learn from a planning committee. Thank you, Barry, for all that information. I'd just like to say that I feel that the access from Potter Lane means the plot does not infill a gap in otherwise developed frontage. Also, I can't see any special circumstances for the construction of a new property and its inappropriate development in the Greenbelt, contrary to G1 of the South Ribble local plan and framework, and therefore I would go for refusal. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Hancock. Okay, so I've got a proposal for refusal. I've got a seconder. Do I have any other proposals? No other proposals? Okay, we'll go to the vote on this one then. Councillor Will Adams?
For, Chair.
For what?
Refusal, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Adams. Councillor Donoghue?
For refusal.
Thanks, Councillor Donoghue. Councillor Flannery?
Refusal.
Councillor Mary Green?
Refusal, Chair.
Councillor Harry Hancock?
Refusal, Chair.
Councillor John Hesketh?
Refusal, Chair.
Councillor Mick Higgins?
Refusal, sir.
Councillor Christine Melia?
Refusal.
Councillor Caroline Moon?
Refusal.
Councillor Phil Smith?
Refusal.
Councillor Gareth Watson?
Refusal, Chair.
And Councillor Barry Yates?
Refusal, Chair.
And I am also for refusal on the grounds of the report. Okay, Dave, can we have the outcome?
Yes, Chair, that was a unanimous vote for refusal based on the reasons set out in the report concerned with Greenbelt considerations.
Okay, thanks for that, Dave. Okay, we'll move on to item number 8. Oakland Farm, Hollins Lane, Leyland. And Debbie will present the report.
Thank you, Chair. Oakland's Farm is a relatively flat half-a hectare site to the northern side of and access from Hollins Lane in Leyland. To the south and east are mature trees and hedgerows, and Hollins Cottage is 19 metres southeast. Hollins Farm straddles the lane at 200 metres away, but otherwise it's surrounded by open land. There are no pavements or street lighting on Hollins Lane. I've got a really bad connection, so if this all stops now, I'll apologise. The site itself has a stable block, sand paddock, 3 polytunnels and a number of storage containers. There are open areas to the site, but it's generally untidy. It's designated as Greenbelt by the local plan, but it does benefit from extant permission for use as a mechanics workshop, livery stables and a store, and separately a 2-storey dwelling with garage, stable block and a cattery that was approved at appeal. This shows the site access from Hollins Lane viewing west. And the Hollins Lane itself facing east. Leyland Lane is 250 metres east, and the site access is on the left-hand side. The road is adopted up to roughly where Macar is at the eastern side of the entrance. And this is the access from Leyland Lane onto Hollins Lane. Hollins Farm straddles the access on both sides. Okay, the proposal is a reduction on a previously refused scheme, but we must acknowledge that changes have been made to reflect members' comments and those made in the appeal decision, which was for 9 dwellings and was dismissed. The site's also recognised as previously developed land whose redevelopment conforms with Greenbelt policy, subject to there being no greater impact on openness. The existing volume on site is around 2,600 cubic metres, and the rural development allows up to 3,300 cubic metres overall. The scheme's around 3,000, so in purely volume terms, it's also policy compliant. The proposal is for 4 dwellings with ancillary works around a courtyard layout. There's been main access and widened pavement off Hollins Lane. Trees will be removed to allow for the access, but acceptable mitigation's been proposed. Properties are 2-storey, 3 and 4 bedroom, 2 detached and 2 semis with parking and amenity space to adopted standards. There will be no anticipated loss of amenity to the existing residents, and landscaping and access are all acceptable. They are fairly traditional in the design, but they're in a layout and a form that's more likely to be found in an urban area. The comments of the previous appeal need to also be taken in account, and they are in full in the report. There's a lot of them, but essentially the inspector said that although the proposed dwellings would occupy the same area as the existing buildings, these read as being related to rural activity, and even single-storey will be more prominent with adverse visual impact. Also, that suburban character of development would not be in keeping with more widely separated properties on Hollins Lane. So whilst the site is previously developed land, the general paraphernalia of domestic living and 2-storey properties is felt to impact more on the openness than the existing, although members may decide this isn't the case and the proposed design is acceptable in this location, and you're free to do that. There are also concerns that the site's not in a sustainable location with reasonable access to retail and community facilities as required by adopted policy, and again, very detailed justification in the report. I won't go through it all tonight. This opinion was supported by the inspector of the earlier appeal, and whilst this one is was for 9 houses and this is only for 4, the location hasn't changed and the site is still, in our opinion, as unsustainable as it was before. The Council's policy team considered the site during the previous local plan allocation exercise and found that it scored poorly. This assessment went along with others through examination and was found sound. Sorry about this. Okay, the applicant offers comparison with Earnshaw Business Park, which is off Hugh Lane here. The applicant has argued in the past and at the current time that we need a more consistent approach to sustainable location. So we offer this up, and as you can see, the site is similar size. The access arrangements and proximity to school are similar to Hollins Lane, but it's much closer to Earnshaw Bridge Retail Centre. There's employment on Moss Side, there is employment all the way along Golden Hill Lane. We offer counter comparison, a similarly remote scheme, Winston on Drumacre Lane, which was dismissed at appeal, on amongst other things, sustainable travel grounds. And it's a similar location in relation to a local centre, retail opportunities and schools to the Hollins Lane site. This is the Hollins Lane site, and these are the closest local facilities. There is a balance to be made. In support, the site reuses an untidy area with significant existing built development and extant permissions. The proposal is 8 per hectare, which is really low, and it indicates appropriate screening and landscaping. There would also be a similar state of openness to the site centre than currently exists. Against the scheme, it would introduce a pattern of development not consistent with adjacent development or the rural location. It's a badly maintained private, partially private road which needs work, and sustainable public transport options are really limited. Access to community and retail facilities are only possible with a considerable walk or by vehicle, and the site's not considered suitable for sustainable development as confirmed by the local plan examination. Excuse me. We need to also take into account the detailed comments from other appeal decisions which are in the report that you have before you. On balance, taking into account the extent and current development, we would recommend refusal for 2 reasons in summary, which are that the development will be an incongruous addition to a rural location which fails to positively contribute to the quality of the environment. It wouldn't respect or enhance the established character and appearance of the area. And secondly, the site is an unsustainable location due to its distance from nearest shops and services, the absence of public transport, and lack of connection to settlements. The committee last time for 9 houses refused on grounds that it was inappropriate development in the Greenbelt by virtue of its impact upon the openness. Development doesn't constitute inappropriate development because it benefits from Greenbelt exception as previously developed land. But if members consider that the buildings impact more on the openness than the current situation, then we can put forward another reason for refusal, but we would need to reword it to remove reference to inappropriate development. If members are minded to approve, we would recommend decision is delegated to the Chair, Vice Chair and Director of Planning until completion of a legal agreement to secure bus stop improvements and access onto private land from Hollins Lane. Part of the access is a private road, so that agreement would need to be signed by all parties in ownership as well as the applicant. But just to reiterate, we would recommend refusal. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, Debbie. We don't have any registered speakers. We don't have members not on committee. We don't have the applicant or the agent either. So we're going to open it straight up to committee. Councillor Mary Green.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Historically, well, I know that area quite well, and it's been stated in the report that it's an untidy area, etc. I don't want to be pedantic, but it's become an untidy area since the present occupant has owned this. Previously, it was just stables. I think it was 3 or 4 stables, and it was quite tidy. But over a period of time, with the addition of all these other buildings and things that he's put on there, that is what's made it more untidy. Potentially, it's a single track. Very bad access. There's only room for 1 car to go down each way. If you think about 4 houses, that would potentially sort of state that could potentially be 8 to 9 cars from 4 properties, if not more. The access onto Leyland Lane is quite difficult, as Leyland Lane is a very fast-moving traffic road. So these extra vehicles going onto Leyland Lane could cause a problem. It's not in keeping with the other properties. There's just 2 properties down there, which are literally farmhouses of a different sort of style and design than the proposed development. There's reference to comparing it with U Lane. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because it's quite a while since, but I think we got U Lane to have bollards on so bikes and horse riders and pedestrians could get access from U Lane onto the development there, but not vehicular access. So there's no vehicle access down U Lane onto that next development. So I don't see where the comparison states. All in all, I don't think this development is suitable for the area for all the reasons that the council has put in, and I'm proposing refusal on the reasons that South Ribble Council has put forward. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Green, so that's a proposal for refusal. I have Councillor Moon and Councillor Phil Smith next.
Thank you, Chair. I would second Councillor Mary Green, and I would agree with what Councillor Mary Green's just said. I think I can take on board the fact that the applicant has made changes and has taken into consideration some of what's previously been said, but it doesn't change the fact that the location is the same and the location is not sustainable. And it doesn't change the fact that this is a single farm track with farmhouses, and this development, albeit 4 now, not 9, is an urban style development. It's just completely wrong. The fit is completely wrong. So as far as I'm concerned, and that's before you deal with the private track, I mean, that's a separate issue, and whether that would ever get signed by all parties is outside of our remit. But no, as far as I'm concerned, Chair, whilst I recognise the changes, and I think our planning officer was very balanced in that presentation and recognised the changes, it still does not satisfy our planning framework as far as I'm concerned. So I'm happy to second the refusal on the grounds in the report.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Moon. Councillor Phil Smith.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I will be voting with the refusal, but I certainly would like to add something with regard to the nature of it, the development in Greenbelt, and I would like to add something to that because it quite clearly is in Greenbelt, and to me, the building of those houses there, it has a detrimental effect of the nature of the development on the development itself on Greenbelt. So if the other members would like to go with that, and I'm sure the officers can come out with exactly the right words that we need on there, but they'll know the nature of what I was trying to say. I would like to add that to it if the other members are minded to go with that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Smith. Are you all right with that, Debbie?
Yes, Chair. I think we could use the same condition as last time, but we do need to remove the reference to inappropriate development. It will be more about the impact on the openness, if that's all right.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Flannery.
Thanks, Chair. Debbie, just one clarification. I note in 2018 this site did get approval for 1 dwelling. Does that plan still stand?
It will just do, yeah. It probably got about 6 months to run, but if they implement a small part of it, then it will be live for forever then.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do we have any more proposals? Any other members on committee wishing to speak? No, okay, we'll go to the vote then. Oh, sorry, Councillor Hancock, did you want to speak? You're muted. Councillor Hancock, you're muted. Either that or me hearing aids run out.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say I don't think it's been shown that the 4 dwellings would make a positive contribution to the quality of the environment. And it wouldn't be in keeping with the established character and appearance of the area. So I would accept what other people have said and go for refusal.
Okay, thanks for that then. We'll go to the vote if we may. Councillor Will Adams.
For refusal, Chair.
Thanks for that. Councillor Mel Donoghue.
For refusal.
Councillor James Flannery.
Refusal.
Councillor Mary Green.
Refusal.
Councillor Harry Hancock.
Refusal, Chair.
Councillor John Hesketh.
Refusal, Chair.
Councillor Mick Higgins.
Refusal, sir.
Councillor Christine Melia.
For refusal, Chair.
Councillor Caroline Moon.
Refusal.
Councillor Phil Smith.
Refusal.
Councillor Gareth Watson.
Refusal, Chair.
And Councillor Barry Yates.
For refusal, Chair.
And I am also for refusal. Could you give us the scores and the doors on that one, Dave?
Yes, sure. Again, it's another unanimous vote for refusal for the reasons in the report and the additional reason that Debbie has referred to.
That's great. Thanks very much for that. Okay, and item number 9, land at Oldfield and Longmeadow, Much Hoole. Debbie Roberts to present again. This is just a variation of conditions.
Thank you, Chair. You'll recognise this site. A narrow strip running north to south to the west of Oldfield and Longmeadow in Much Hoole. To the west, we've got residential properties, and in the north, we have Knoll Lane, the Knoll Lane roundabout, and the field access to the northwest corner, which would be used for construction traffic. That's a temporary access. Members approved a couple of months ago 14 bungalows for the over 55 age group. This is the main access from Liverpool Old Road onto Marlfield. Longmeadow's on the left, Oldfield's on the right, and access for construction traffic was refused in September. So the Knoll Lane access is the only construction access. This is the Knoll Lane access from the adjacent roundabout. The proposal before you is to remove this tree to allow full access into the site, which is well underway. The 2 adjacent trees are already approved for removal, but they've been left pending this decision. The scheme on the top, if you can see it, where the red box around, is the tree that will be coming out, and the one on the right with the red box is the replacement tree. The arborist suggested, our arborist suggested a 16 to 18 centimetre girth alder tree, and we would secure that by condition. There are also 3 trees which have been removed further down the site. They were proposed for retention, but they were removed in error. There was a category C ash and 2 small category B hawthorn trees, so nothing of any high value. But we brought it to the applicant's attention. They've held their hands up and they've agreed to introduce 2 large trees towards plots 5 and 6. And we have a separate plan for that. That's on your update sheet, which gives you the detail of the new plan. The arborist is supportive of both the removal of the single tree and the replacements as a pragmatic approach. He says that the loss of trees approaching semi-maturity won't have a negative long-term effect on the local area, giving retention of similar specimen in the vicinity. My mouth's not working this morning. Proposed replacement is suitable, and although it won't offer immediate compensation, it will offer significant future amenity value. It also enables faster development by removing the tree at Knoll Lane and the contractors to be off-site earlier, which in neighbourhood amenity terms offers betterment. So we will recommend vary this condition with the additional conditions that haven't been discharged from the earlier scheme. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Debbie. We have no registered speakers. We have no members not on committee wishing to speak, and we don't have the applicant or the agent. So I will open this up to committee. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It would have been nice, having been up there this morning, to see a nice green field there that was there, but it is a major building site at the moment. It looks as though most of the foundations and footings are in already. It's a completely muddy site, I have to say. I was happy to see which tree. It looks on site, having been up there this morning, that you can get in and out, but I think we probably have to accept that it might be difficult to build that last particular property there. I don't know whether there's anything with regard to TPOs on the rest of the trees, or whether they should be on the rest of the trees. Just a comment that would be useful, Chair, is that if the developers on the site would use the wheel wash, that would be really good, because it is a completely muddy mess down that road and round the roundabout. Thank you.
Okay, Debbie, would you like to come in on that one, the TPOs and the wheel wash?
Yeah, sure. From a TPO perspective, all the trees on site that have been retained are category B and C. Our arborist is happy they're not worthy of protecting, other than screening during construction. Yes, there is mud on the road. I went down the other day myself following a complaint from a resident, and we have that in hand. I think it's not so much the development site, it's taking the spoil from the site to its final destination. But we have the enforcement team, and they've got that in hand. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, Debbie.
I'll remove approval, Chair, while I'm on.
You'll propose approval. Okay, thanks, Councillor Smith. Councillor John Hesketh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I always think it's rather sad when trees have to be removed. In actual fact, I looked at the site and I do wonder really why it needs to be moved, but someone must know more about it than I do. And providing that they do replace that tree with a reasonable type of tree, I'm not too worried, I suppose. And I think it's a much more sensible access off Knoll Lane than what was first proposed to go through the housing estate. And I'll go along with it, Mr. Chairman. I'll approve it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Hesketh. So you're seconding Councillor Smith's proposal. Councillor Barry Yates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just looking at these two trees that they said, oops, we've removed them. You know, that goes on a lot of applications, and they just knock with trees down and don't bother. If they've got one tree left there, would it not be possible to leave that tree? Have a look. It would not be possible to leave that tree because they've took two trees down that they shouldn't have done already. And you just move the entrance to the, I think it's to the right. That's all it could take, and we could save that tree. So that's one question. And the other one is the condition of the roads, which Councillor Smith has just fetched up. It really does need a wheel wash. Is that on the planning condition from the last application? And if not, I would wish to add that on as a condition that they do have a wheel wash there and it is used. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Debbie, would you like to come back on that one?
I will. I think it was a genuine mistake to take the trees down. If they wanted to remove the trees wholesale, they would have done the rest, but they've left bits and bobs around the site. And I think it was more a contractor error than the applicant themselves. They've held their hands up when we told them about it, and they offered to mitigate. We've not had to take enforcement action against them. They suggested this scheme. Yes, there is a wheel wash condition which is partially discharged on this, and we keep that wheel wash condition on until the site's complete. As I say, we've got that in hand, and our enforcement team are looking at that and keeping an eye on things. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Debbie. Councillor Yates, do you want to come back on that?
Only just to say, Chair, here we go again, letting trees go. It's easy to say, oh, it was a genuine mistake. There's too many of these genuine mistakes going on. It's about time, as South Ribble, we make sure that these applications go through as we put them through in the planning conditions that we lay down and we approve, not for them to keep coming and saying, oops, we've knocked two more trees down that we didn't need. So it's just a note so that if our planning officers can look at that and stop this happening in future. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Yates. Anyone else on committee wishing to speak on this? Nope. Okay. So I've had a proposer for approval. I've had a seconder for approval. So we will go to the vote. Councillor Adams.
For approval, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Mel Donoghue.
For approval.
Councillor James Flannery. Approval. Councillor Mary Green.
Approval.
Councillor Harry Hancock.
Approval, Chair.
Councillor John Hesketh.
Approval.
Councillor Mick Higgins.
Approval, Chair.
Councillor Christine Melia.
Approval, Chair.
Councillor Caroline Moon.
Approval.
Councillor Phil Smith.
Approval.
Councillor Gareth Watson.
For approval, Chair.
And Councillor Barry Yates.
For approval, Chair.
I too am for approval. Dave will confirm the outcome of the votes.
Yes, Chair, it's another unanimous vote in favour of varying the conditioning question on the planning permission.
Okay, thank you all for attending this evening's planning committee. Before closing the meeting, could I remind you all that there's a planning training session next Wednesday, the 18th of November from 5:30. You can access it over Teams or you can come into the Shield room, as long as you're socially distanced. Okay, thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen. The time is 7:18.
Chair.
Yes, yes, Councillor
Sorry.
Marie.
Just before we go, can I just say I will be coming to that training, but I'm not always clear of work by 5:30, so I'll be there as soon as I can. But I'm coming.
Up to the Shield room?
No, I'll be dialing in, but I don't always finish. I'm not always finished.
That's fine. That's, yeah.
I'm always on the last minute, Chair. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Don't worry about it. All right, lovely. Thanks very much for attending. See you all next week.
Thank you.